bus. I'm already tired. Can somebody else take over, please? No. We've got Flo. Flo can take over. I just want to make sure, because I know the aircon on the bus does affect the sound at the back, but you're fine at the back. All right. My name is Antoinette Morgan, and with me is Ed Coogan. We will be our guides for today on the ridges and passes of Johannesburg. More importantly, we have Michelle on navigation, because she's going to try, but I can promise you if I had to navigate, we would end up at Sunny's Pass instead of Sylvia's Pass. So, thank you, Michelle. And most importantly, our driver, Mr. Woodroy. He will be taking this coach. Mr. Woodroy, how many horsepower is this bus? 420. The equivalent of 420 horses. We're not going to get through the turns where we're going to go through. Luckily, it's all crammed into a nice little engine. And Mr. Woodroy is our driver. He's going to make sure we're going to get where we're going to go and back. And he's trusting us that we have chosen the route where he can go with his bus and back. But before we start, just a couple of things we need to take care of. Please remain seated at all times while the bus is in motion. Only stand up when we stop. We will be stopping along the way, and at Munro Drive we will actually disembark for a quick view and some more talk on Munro Drive. But while the bus is in motion, please remain seated at all times. No smoking or vaping is allowed on the bus or in the toilet facilities, but the toilet facilities are not in use. Okay. Consumption of alcohol is not permitted. And please, if possible, refrain from using your cell phones other than taking photos. So if you can, put your cell phone on silent, vibrate, or airplane mode, but you're more than welcome to take photos with your cell phones. But when you have phones ringing and people talking, it could be a bit of disruptive maybe for the other people. Yeah. You're welcome to enjoy snacks and refreshments. But I'm going to ask you at the end of the tour to just take whatever containers you've got with you, because we've got to turn the bus around to collect the people that have been dropped off, that we've been waiting for the bus to come back. Okay. But there will be no refreshment stops along the way, and there won't be any toilet stops along the way. It's only an hour and a half. Irrespective of what time we start, we have to be back at 4:45. And I'm a sticker for timing, unfortunately. When you stand up, I just want you to take care of your overhead luggage racks, so you don't suddenly stand up and then knock your head on the overhead luggage rack. Okay. So remain seated. This bus actually has place for 53 people seated, no standing. And as I said, the tour is about an hour and a half and roughly about 21 kilometers. Now, we're back at 4:45, and for our safety, myself and Ed, we will remain seated as we present the tour for safety purposes. So sit back, enjoy, relax, and enjoy the tour as we go take you around some of history in Johannesburg, going through different areas. Okay. So we're just going to get some logistics right with getting ourselves going. At this point in time, are there any other questions that anybody has that they just want to clarify anything about? No questions here. No questions allowed later, because I might not know the answer. I'm just teasing. All right, we had our first stop. I know we could have walked here. No. The reason why I'm stopping here, and I'm speaking about myself, is the fact that we often go up and down Oxford Road at the speed of light, and we don't notice these two blue plaques on your left. No. Okay, so these two blue plaques, this is the remains of a property, the garden walls and the gate of a property that started off, it was part of the original Braamfontein farm. You wonder, but if you heard of Braamfontein farm, it carries on like forever. And it was part of the Braamfontein farm north of the Reach. It had an old farmhouse, and the Edward Lippert actually leased the farm and then bought the farm from the Geldenays, the Lawrence Geldenays, and he lived on it while he was. Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay. This is just a photograph of Edward Lippert. He owned the farm and called it, after his wife died, he called it Murray. His wife was Murray, so he called it Marienhof. He lived here. He was a pro-Boer supporter. He actually requested, can I stand now? He actually requested that there be a street named after him. And the street was called Lippert Street, that ran past in front of his house. This was originally Lippert Street. He was also involved in the planting of Saxonwald, which we know today as Saxon wool. And the Saxonwald forest was actually across the road from his house. So he worked with Mr. Herr Genth, on the Saxonwald, and they planted the Saxonwald under the command of Herman Eckstein from the Corner House Company. The reason why they planted the forest is that in the early days with mining, they needed a lot of wood for props, supports, and to hold up the shafts. On the handout I've just sent through, the bottom picture is some of the wood, to give you an indication how much wood was used in the mining during the mining time. They used mainly blue gum and oak for the woods in the mine, because those are the strongest trees. So they planted the entire forest. That forest extended quite far. I've got quite a few more pictures I will show you. When the Anglo-Boer War, the South African War, broke out, because he was a pro-Boer supporter, he left the country. He packed up and left. Then in 1913, Albert Victor Lindbergh bought the farm, and he renamed it to Onder de Kopje. Albert Lindbergh was the starter of the Central News Agency, or the CNA as we know it today, or has become known and is now disappeared in oblivion. He was the founding member of CNA in South Africa. And him and his wife lived here. When he passed away in 1939, his wife stayed on the property. In 1969, the government acquired the property and flattened it to build the M1. So, and all that's remained is the wall with the gate and the blue plaques. Yes, you can. You can stop now.
Good afternoon, all. Can you hear me? Are you all comfortable, folks? Yes. If you can look ahead, maybe from the right, up on the right-hand side, up on the ridge, you'll see the magnificent Northwards. Northwards is one of the landlord's homes. It was built 2005 was the home of John. 1905.
Yeah.
Did I say 2005?
No, 1905.
I hope not. 1905. All right. It was the home of John and Jose de Lace. It's a bit difficult, but can you see it? Those of you who've never been there, it's a very popular destination for our tours. It is magnificent. The curator is a man who knows an incredible amount, can give you a wonderful tour. But in addition, you think of the flowers you'll see.
Carry on.
For in a month's time, think of the jacarandas down below. Glorious view over the zoo and to so many places we know. And the De Laces are most incredible socialites, and he was a very successful mining businessman. They actually got married twice. She's famous so many ways. She was an actress in England. She also was very good friends, we know, with the Prince of Wales, who later became Edward VII. She was known as the Bird of Paradise and other things. She was absolutely beautiful. But it's a place you can visit, so please come on our tours if we're going there.
Okay, as we make our way up towards Northwich, which has now disappeared behind some of the trees, we will be passing under the M1 motorway. So the M1 had flattened a lot of the lovely old homes here in Parktown, and it opened in 1968, and it was named after the Minister of Transport, Ben Schoeman. In those days we used to call him Ben Willekes Schoeman because he was the Minister of Transport. The original motorway started in Bramley at Caller Drive and ran south through Killarney and Parktown, cutting through the ridge. You'll see as we go up, we're going under the passover of the M1, that some of the cutaways they've done to get the M1 built. Groundbreaking started in 1962 near Braamfontein Yards, where the first elevated bridge was built, because this runs onto the flyover. And the initial section opened in the CBD, with this section only completed somewhere between 1972 and 1974. Okay. Okay, so here we are. Okay, sorry, stop. Okay, so here we are in front of Villa Arcadia. Villa Arcadia was the second home of the Phillips, Florence and Lionel Phillips. Now, they acquired this house. This house used to belong to Corner House, the company called Corner House. They were given this house, and it's actually slightly in, but it's below where the original home Hohenheim stood, but it's just below Hohenheim, which I will tell you about a little more as we go along. It stands on a shelf of the koppies overlooking Sachsenwald. As I said, Sachsenwald was a massive forest, and it commanded a huge view all the way back to the Magaliesberg Mountains. Those days they didn't have a lot of too much fog and pollution. The approach was down Lippert Road. By then Lippert Road had already been built, and which now had become Oxford Road, and it comes down the Parktown Hill. Now, in the beginning, when they found the house, Florence Phillips decided that although the house was nice and big, it was useless for entertainment, and she loved to entertain. So in 1908, they had the entire house demolished and rebuilt. But before the second house was built, Florence had already planned and engineered the garden, and using the high wall of the copy behind her as a natural backdrop and leaving it completely untouched. But the front shelf of the house below, it's actually got an open space, and it's still there, which is an open space gallery. So the front, in the front of that, it dropped down very steeply. So what they did is they blasted. They literally blasted the ground away, using the blasted rock to build the walls, the retaining walls for the mini plateaus they were building. And then she had loads and loads of sand actually brought in. Yeah, so they had loads of sand brought in to landscape the gardens. And because Florence Phillips, and she also called herself Florrie Phillips, was very big on gardening.
Ladies and gentlemen, on our left, it's not a good view, but you will hear glimpses of it, is a very well-known landmark in Johannesburg, Dolobran, sometimes called Dulebran. We have occasionally got in, we visited the gardens. It's well worth coming on one of our tours. It is probably the most eclectic mansion in the whole of Johannesburg, and I'm sure you're all well acquainted with the extraordinary dome that's there. It was the home of Charles Llewellyn Anderson, built in 1906. Like so many people in this area, a lot of these men went to fight for king and country in the Anglo-Boer War. He was one of them, and a particularly significant aspect of this house, the Dolobran, is the fact that it still belongs to the original Anderson family. The other thing, people who came on this morning's trip may remember, the family initially asked Sir Herbert Baker to quote, and he proposed a design, and they rejected it. They didn't like his little windows. So they chose a building with huge windows to bring in the Transvaal sun. Now, on the right, you will see North Lodge. North Lodge is another one we visit occasionally. It now belongs to Wits University. It was built in 1906 for Henry Wilson. He was sometimes referred to as the Oats King, but he seems to be maybe not quite such a king and countryman as a Rhett Butler type. An awful lot of people do very well out of wars. If you glance up the road on the left we passed, that is Jubilee Road. It was named for Queen Victoria's Jubilee, but very likely also a little bit of a finger to Paul Kruger's government.
Antoinette, would it be possible we stop to put the those things up so we can see?
Lift it. Okay, we will do it now in a few minutes. Okay. Okay. Yes, much better. Thank you. Okay, as we turn to our left, okay, so I spoke about Hohenheim, and Okay, so we spoke about Hohenheim, which was the first home of the Phillips. Now, you know Joburg Gen, or we call the Joburg General Hospital, or the Charlotte Macleke Hospital. That stands on the site of the original Hohenheim building, where the Phillips first lived. Now, I'm going to quote to you from Thelma Kuschke's biography on Florence Phillips. And so, it says the following: the Hohenheim was referred to also as Phillips Folly by the people, or by Joburg's own Buckingham Palace by J.B. Taylor. Now, the story goes that after the birth of her daughter, when she was able to ride again, she searched for a site for the new house. She agreed with Lionel that it should be out of town, away from the dust and the unhealthiness, and she found it. After many months in the most improbable place, 2 miles away. Not only in the wilds far beyond town, but on a rocky ridge so steep that access was almost impossible, overlooking Herman Ikstein's growing Sachsenwald. Lionel rode out with her and to see its magnificent difficulties of the situation captured his engineering mind, and he decided Flory was right. The site was unparalleled, but the road would have to be blasted through the solid rock to reach the little plateau on which the house could be built. There were no trees except saplings that were planted by her Genf. The rocky outcrops reared bare and menacing behind the steep slope fell away to the plantation below. And I know as we travel here, we go, that is what this place looked like? Yes. The town still thought them mad. But they had formally inaugurated their home with a reception on a dark, moonless night, and scores of carriages safely negotiated the lonely road. The palace of the King and the Queen of Johannesburg was fairly established. During and after the Anglo-Boer War, they had been away for 8 years. They lived in London for 8 years. And when they came back, the Phillips returned to Johannesburg, and this is what they found. When they left, Hohenheim was the only house in a desolate area overlooking Hergen's acres of pine and gum. Now it was part of the fashionable suburb, still bare and rocky, but filling rapidly with houses, mainly built by the resident architect Herbert Baker. Down below, the pine saplings have grown into a dense forest, and unofficially, it was like the start of what sometimes referred to as the Landlord's Mile.
Okay, and gentlemen, I think it's one of the greatly historical parts of Johannesburg. We are now on your right. You can see the Hillbrow Tower, but that's not of interest at the moment. You can see the view. The 2 mansions you see. The one that you will see on the right, there is the view. The view, particularly important, is one of the landlord's mansions built before the Anglo-Boer War, but still standing. It was the home of Sir Thomas Cullinan, and lady's wife, and a large family. It was originally considerably smaller than it is now. You'll find that the 2 bay windows, the one on the left was the limit of the original house. It's extended outwards to include the other one. It's still a very well proportioned building. Thomas Cullinan, of course, he was originally basically a trainee bricklayer, but he built himself up very much. Diamond magnate. The town of Cullinan is named after him. Cullinan diamond, you've heard of, which was used in the Royal Crown, and you can still visit the Cullinan diamond mine in the town of Cullinan. And as of 10 years ago, we did a tour, and we met the president, the Lady Cullinan, of that time. They were now. It's not just a classical building. In the here and now, it is the home of the Transvaal Scottish Regiment. It's a regiment that has done South Africa proud for about a century, and we had an interesting meeting with them. We asked were they allowed to keep the name. Surprisingly, they spoke so highly of Minister of Defence, Nadim Sisulu, who said we've got better things to do than change names. But later, military administration wouldn't go along, and the name has been changed. But you are welcome to visit there. They have a wonderful museum of artifacts for the history of the regiment. They still describe themselves as the Transvaal Scottish. Now to the left of that, you'll see those two white chimneys and the green roof. That is Hazeldean Hall. We have occasionally gone to visit there. That was the home of Charles Jerome. He was a friend of Thomas Cullinan, who suggested building there, but it was quite a bit later. I think Cullinan moved in probably 1903. It was quite a few years later. Jerome moved in, and that building has been used for various purposes since then. I think slowly. The magnificent statue of the Scottish soldier, was originally downtown, but there was a lot of concern with being vandalized, so it's been moved to this very appropriate site. It's a very beautiful statue, has been restored, and I think it's something we can all be very impressed with. Now, can I continue? Alright, folks, we are now slowly approaching the Sunnyside Park Hotel. This hotel, most of us are acquainted with it. We've certainly been to see it. We've had drinks there, and we often used as a starting point for our tours. And as I say, it has been extensively changed with blocks of the uphill and the downhill end.
It's hard to
But if you look at the main section, is there a question?
You must speak in the top of the mic, the top.
Is that any better?
Yeah. Right on the top, like tilt it out.
Is that better?
Yes.
Put your thumb there.
You must hold it against his chin.
And then put it against your chin. Put your thumb and then hold your thumb against your chin.
Is that it?
Yes, yes.
All right.
Thumb against your
Okay.
chin.
Folks, on the left, I don't need to tell you much about it. On your left is the monstrous Joburg General Hospital, which Antoinette has already spoken about. I don't want to say much more, except why was the View called the View? It's a strange name when you look in the wall of an ugly great hospital, but that hospital was not there at the time. Clear day you could see the Michalisburg. Now, looking through the grounds at the Sunnyside means looking a bit, it's on your right, it'll look quite hard, but at one corner of the main section of the building, you'll see what's like a round, almost turret. That ground floor of that was the office. It was the office of Lord Milner immediately after the Anglo-Boer War. Milner came here trying to manage the country, trying to get it going again, but also with a lot of anglicised policies. Are you still hearing me, folks?
Yes.
Can I continue?
Hi everybody, my name is Michelle. On the left you can see Rodine School, and on the 5th of October it's going to be open. They've opened their gardens, which were originally laid out by Anne Lorentz, and they are magnificent. They've got a craft fair and all sorts of things. So if you're not doing anything on Saturday the 5th of October, book through Cricket and go there. It'll be a morning and an afternoon well spent.
Just to continue the line of thought, are you hearing me? Continue the line of thought. What's now the Sunnyside Hotel was the home of Henry Jennings, another of those gentlemen who went to fight for king and country. But it has been modified many times. It's largely two-story now. If you walk in the grounds, you'll see the ground floor is beautifully built in stone. The upper section is in brick. And the like. It's nonetheless a very pleasant place to go with all these historical connections. You can have a look, as we turn to the left, you can have a look over the more recent part of the Rodin School. We're now turning into Houghton Drive. Folks, a place that many of us have been to, but for those who haven't, we have the Wilds. This bridge connects two esteemed schools. It is called the Desmond and Leah Tutu Bridge, and it connects the Rodin School with St. John's School. But looking ahead of you, you'll see this very treed area. The trade area is known as the Wilds. It's a huge park, 16 hectares, established originally in 1937. It is planted with indigenous trees, indigenous to South Africa. Not to here, this would have been a pretty barren rocky ridge. If you walk there, they've got magnificent, lots of huge trees. I particularly noticed the bush willows, massive, massive ones. And it's wonderful walks. You will enjoy it, but preferably go in company. Join the dog walking group or the like for your safety.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to, if you do come to the wilds, the west is a lot safer and much more active than the eastern side. If you come on the eastern side or your right hand side, you just need to, if you come to the eastern side, just come in groups as well. And they called it the wilds because they wanted to keep it wild as possible. And the name just stuck. It's just never changed. So I just want to talk a little bit about the trees of Johannesburg. Johannesburg is in a grassland biome, which is mainly grass, but it can have trees. The only difference is Johannesburg was devoid of trees. And they did a lot of studies to try and understand why Johannesburg, compared to other cities on the same latitude and altitude, has less trees. And it was found that the soil here is more conducive to the growing of grass. Grass grows here much better naturally, except in my yard, than trees. So all the trees we've got in Johannesburg, more than 90% of our trees are not indigenous trees to Johannesburg. So you will have your blue gums and your oaks that were planted specifically for mining. Your jacarandas were planted for aesthetic and keeping everything beautiful and keeping the dust at bay. One thing I've got is typical of old Joburg, no grass. Oh, Joburg has got grass, but I do have a lot of dust in my house. The other interesting thing about the oak trees of Johannesburg, we mainly have the English oak, and they actually brought seeds from the oak lane that was planted by Jan van Riebeeck in the Cape. And they used the seeds of that oak lane from Jan van Riebeeck's oak lane to plant the oaks up here in Johannesburg. So the other characteristic of Johannesburg, that even if it was devoid of a lot of trees, it is now known as the biggest man-made forest, at least in the southern hemisphere. In the city precinct or in the city boundaries, what they would call the greater city boundaries, it's about 6 million trees. In the metropolis of Johannesburg, it's 10 million trees. Our trees are unfortunately at threat of the shotball beetle, and there is just no cure. They are not getting anything to clear the shotball beetles. So you will sometimes just see trees just go falling over, which is rather sad. We have also 50,000 acres of green space and 2,000 public parks contributing to the green reputation of Johannesburg. That is one of the things that I love about Johannesburg, is all its parks. I'm sending you a little handout again to show you what Joburg looked like without trees. This is picture taken from the south up to the north, and the picture below is taken from the north over the city back to the south, to show how it changed from a treeless city to a very wooded city. I'm going to talk a little bit about the geology of the ridges, and I'm not going to bore you too much with geological terms, although I can get carried away a bit. We know Joburg lies on the area called the Witwatersrand Ridge. But the Witwatersrand Ridge is made up of different ridges. So we've just come up the Parktown Ridge. We're now going up the Houghton Ridge. Then we will also cross over between the Linksfield and Mountain View Ridge, going down the Yeovil Ridge. So we've got, although we've talked about the Witwatersrand Ridge or the ridge of the Witwatersrand, there's different ridges in the ridge of the Witwatersrand. So if people say like, we're talking about one ridge, no, we're talking actually about a couple of ridges. You want to stop now? Okay. No, because we're going to stop and get out first. Okay.
I'll keep quiet.
Yeah. So we've got the Witwatersrand Ridge is a quartzite ridge that runs east-west. It provides a geological insight exposing 500 million years of Earth history. And now the interesting thing about the geological formation and the geological the roads of Johannesburg is you can see these exposures in different cutaways as you go along. So if you're into rock formations and geology and you like that type of thing, you can actually go on your own little mini tour through the ridges of and the exposures of the geological formations. Yeah. Just on your right, you've got the eastern side of the wilds. Okay. So that you can, there's actually an entrance right here to the eastern side of the wilds as well. We just got a very sharp hairpin bend that we got to go around. And if you just can excuse me, we just need to park a little bit to the front. The red bus is right behind us. It's park in front of the red bus. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind you that here we're going to disembark for a few minutes. We will use both entrances to disembark and re-embark. And while we're going to enjoy the view and listen to more of the history and the geology of this area. Thank you. Yes. Okay.
Up here.
Please, come in here. What's this? About the little coffee shop in now. Yes. Are we going okay so far? No, it's already 5 to 3 already, and we've got to be back at 4. Yeah, we might have to speed up a bit, yes. No, so from here onwards, I will just show it that we can pick up speed again. Okay. Yeah. No, that would be yeah. You want to go down and talk to them on the history?
No, it's new. So the entrance.
Wait, the bus.
You could have buses get confused with the two buses and get on the wrong buses.
Turn the engine off.
If he wants to.
we talk by the badge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. It was lovely. Not the other day.
We did a drive round and we saw it and decided to go and have a cup. It's a lovely place. You did right.
Is it open during the week?
Picture of what Monroe Drive used to look like.
So they've got
It's
a
only
view
for line
on
of
top,
vision, straight
on the
through.
roof, and I'm trying to get them to organise and allow it as a function to have a party on there because the view from there is
Yeah.
Hello, folks. Can
Everybody gather around, please?
folks? For many of you, I'm telling you what you already know, but you also in your numbers, there'll be quite a few newcomers to Johannesburg, and strange but true to say, there'll be people who lived here all their lives and who don't know this pretty place. So let's at least try and fill you in a little bit. Certainly one of my favourite places in Johannesburg is this magnificent view site. Quite incredible, and imagine what it'll be like in a month's time looking over the jacarandas. And of course you can see lots of places we know, like near where I live, Northcliffe Water Tower straight over there, and so on. Now look, the Monroe Drive was named after John Monroe. He was the director of JCI, and also often referred to as Johnny's. Monroe Drive was completed in 1919. However, maybe they hadn't learned civil engineering quite as well, and part of the retaining wall collapsed. This is in 1938, and so the drive had to be rebuilt, basically as it is today. I think you'll agree it's a magnificent piece of engineering. It's very beautiful and adds value to the city. I draw your attention to the city badge on the railings just behind you, folks. I think it's in every section. You see the city badge in the middle of it there. Also draw attention to a lot of the magnificent trees around. And for example, the pepper trees up here, as my colleague has just reminded me, it's an indication they probably had stables there, because you would put pepper trees to attract the flies away from such places. The pepper trees and the English willows can be confused, but they are not the same.
Which ones are the pepper trees?
No.
Yeah.
So is there a question?
You see what I showed you, these first ones are the good.
Something definite on my notes that Antoinette found while doing the reconnaissance of this tour is a very pleasant little hospital just on the hill up here. You can't access it from Monroe. You basically follow your nose up the top, go right and right the first road, and really it's a very pleasant spot, and you've got even a little bit more of the drive, and you don't have the red bus there. Anyway, this drive connects Upper and Lower Houghton. It's about 900 meters long, and apparently it's one of the few passes in South Africa less than a kilometer long. It's been largely, the retaining wall, largely made from local quartz that's been quarried here. So it's one of only a handful of official passes less than a kilometer long, but the gradients are steep as 1 in 7. That's quite something. You'll see lots of the old dressed stone. Seems to be that it was hammer dressed, and they must have had some very capable stonemasons in those days. I can't help being very impressed indeed by it. And then, as we've already said, we've got a couple of ridges together. We have to get through them. We have to connect them in some way, like Mountain View, like Houghton. Draw attention to the city crest. You must go. Okay, I think you could spend ages looking at the view, but our time really is tight.
Yeah.
So I think we should move on. Are there any questions at the moment?
I just want to point out something for you. On your left there is the exposure of the quartz site, the geological formation of the quartz site that you'll find on various places along the ridge. Okay. Although you will find that as we go along, we will go through the Parktown Formation, the Linksfield Formation, the Brixton Formation, the Orange Grove Formation. All the formations has actually been given names that actually refer to the suburbs. So as we travel through the suburbs vertically, we will also travel virtually through the suburbs. Vertically, we'll also travel through the suburbs horizontally. Okay, so
Stupid question: why was the pass built? Couldn't they just gone further down the road and hitch a ride?
good question. Why was the pass built here? You will find there are very few places that you can actually get down through the pass, and most probably that road never existed, and they never thought of actually blasting a road through, and then thought that would be a nice way to get up between Lower and Upper Houghton, and then blast the road through here. But yes, if you go further that way, the inclination is much gentler. So why they wanted to blast the road up here?
I heard there was a hotel this side and the miners were that side if they needed to.
Get off between the two to get to the hotel, most probably.
They do draw attention to one thing, and it's a very Johannesburg sort of thing. You'll find many references. You've had one already from Antoinette, one from me. Blasting. Dynamite is something that would have been available, obviously at a cost, but Johannesburg, the mining city, dynamite would be maybe more frequently available than many other cities. From our title, this is a very general overview of the northern half of Johannesburg, but we've drawn attention to the passes in the title. We're looking at a couple of passes, but two of them are, to be honest, I think utterly spectacular, and this is one of them. Folks, we're going to get back on the bus.
We're going to get back on the bus, thank you.
You drop it down a bit.
Is this also a tripod?
I don't know, so I see.
It's a tripod.
It's so cool. Where did you get it?
Most probably online.
What size?
Actually, it's a self-stick. Thank you. But it's got
Navigator. I'm not a navigator yet. I'm just a navigator.
So just getting a hand.
You know, there were laps on this.
Did they open and they got swiped? Well, we always have.
While we embarking, I just want to pass this one around. This is what transportation used to look like in Johannesburg. Remember, there weren't that many roads. There weren't that many roads. You had horse and cart. Okay, I think it's not on because the bus is not on. So you had horse and cart, either for transportation of goods or the transportation of people. And you had to get your way around to town. There wasn't a train in the early days. There wasn't a train in the early days. Sorry, yes, the bus wasn't on, the mic's not on. There wasn't a train in the early days. They did everything by horse and cart from Kimberley to Joburg and on to Pretoria until they built the train line. Okay.
Is there something about bringing stagecoaches from the US?
It's possible. It could be. After study up on the transportation. I'm just going to point out to you as we go up the ridge. You will see here on your right just here behind, after this lamppost, there's a gate on your right hand side. That's where you go in for the gallery and the parking. There's safe parking inside if you want to go down to the coffee shack and sit there at the tables and have a nice coffee while you're enjoying the view, contemplating on what next. Okay.
Yes, a little bit faster. Faster, and you're going to go left here, yeah? Yes, left here, yes.
As we go left on St. Patrick's, to the right is St. John's School for boys that connects up with the bridge to the Redeemed School for girls. But we're going to the left and we're going on past King Edward VII. Now, as Ed has mentioned, King Edward VII was very close friends with Jose de Lacy of Northwood's House. We do not know to what extent their friendship was, but they played cards together, they played board games together, they socialized together when she was still staying in London at times.
Slow down.
You can put King Edward.
Okay, folks, King Edward VII School for a long time was one of the most prestigious of the government schools in the area. King Edward VII School was one of the most prestigious government schools in the area for a long time, and I think in many ways it commemorates the visit of when he became the king to Johannesburg, when the city went nearly wild about it. Of course, it wasn't always popular because it was built right next to St. John's, which is a prestigious private one. But that's the way it is. It was built, it's still here now, and it's quite magnificent. For me, we have had tours here. It's not the most frequent. We've gone on tours here, and there's the most magnificent portrait of the king still to be seen there.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as we're gonna turn right up front, we're just gonna navigate this bus because it was a slight change in my route where we have a slight sharp turn with gutters on each side, and it's the old gutters that they used to make from the remnants of rocks that they blasted out during mining that you will often find in the older suburbs. Well done. Sorry, that was about the sharpest turn we had to do with the bus today. Okay, now we're going to go off to Louis Botha. Now the question arises with Louis Botha is, before I answer, why did they use Louis Botha as the road, or Louis Botha as we used to call it? Why we used Louis Botha as the road to Pretoria and not any of the other roads? Because today there's many roads to Pretoria, and the Ben Schoeman, of course, the most congested, busy one of them all. And even on the weekend when there's any roadworks on Ben Schoeman, you sit in a traffic jam. So in the early days of Johannesburg, no matter what they marked on the maps, there weren't that many roads. Coaches left for Pretoria 3 times a day, and it would take 5 hours to reach Pretoria. The express took 3 hours, but we're in bigger danger because guess what? As we get towards Orange Grove, which is now a nicely tarred road, there used to be potholes. Nothing new. It was originally part of the main road between Johannesburg and Pretoria, and it started, the actual road started at Clarendon Place. From Clarendon Place up to Orange Grove, it used to be known as Morgan's Drive. Possibly is a couple of options named after hotel proprietor Morgan or a clerk in the land surveyor's office called Morgan. It was called renamed Louis Botha in honor of General Louis Botha, who was also an Anglo-Boer War general. As we go down here, keep going. As we go down here, we're about to approach what we call Death Bend. It's because as you come down, the gradient is quite easy and then suddenly dips down, and you can then end up coming down at quite a speed and missing your corner at Death Bend and actually end up having a little accident.
Little bit.
So here we are entering what is always referred to as Death Bend since the start of Louis Botha, with the coaches coming down and losing their track on the gravel, and the animals losing their track, and also the cars losing their track. Till this day, unfortunately. We just got to check. We're clear. Yeah, we can go through. Sorry, when we did the recce on this route earlier this week, there were big roadworks and we couldn't get through here. Yeah, now we can, so we will go straight through. Yeah. So this road dates back to 1876, when it was still just a wagon track, and it connected the farms on the south of the ridge, because there were only farms, there were no city. The city only started after 1886, with Pretoria, which was the capital van die Suid-Afrikaanse Republiek. A little bit. As we approach here at the traffic light, on your left you will have the Victory Theatre. Now it's the Tory Theatre. Victory Theatre, Tory Theatre. Okay, it's still there. Yeah. So Victory Theatre, this specific one opened in 2005, because the original one was torn down in 2007. The original Victory Theatre was torn down in 2005, but it opened as a cinema in 1929. It was renamed the Victory after the World War II, only becoming a theatre in the 1990s. It still indicates as an operational theatre. I'm sure if you Google what they've got on stage, you could still see, and the parking here is fairly safe. They at least do provide with safe parking. No, nothing. It's on. As long as it's on. No, you don't squeeze any. Sorry. You do this. Just stop into the top.
Okay, are you hearing me? We're now coming in. We're in Hope Road. There's some quite magnificent houses along here which were built for the management of ACI. Now, on your right, I draw attention to Shepstone Building. Shepstone House, if you wish. It's not easy to see so much here, but again, it's incredibly eclectic. They've got magnificent gardens. It's well worth a visit. They are open at times.
Right. Keep going. Keep going. You want to plug Shipston Gardens. Keep going. No. Sorry. Okay, so on the right you've got Shipston Gardens. They are part of the open gardens that happens every year during spring that you can come and visit. So you've got to keep your eye open for that as well. The houses on the right-hand side was initially built for the mining senior officials or the senior officials of the dynamite factory in Modderfontein. But as I said, the most magnificent building here is the Shipston Gardens, and they have an open weekend, at least a weekend, if not longer, that you can come and visit, view the gardens, walk around. And they have a magnificent art gallery as well that you can visit. Okay, now as we travel, we are making our way now to Sylvia's Pass. I just want to explain to you a little bit something about Louis Botha again, of why Louis Botha was the road geologically to Pretoria and not any other road. I couldn't find any reason except that I went on my favorite Google Earth and I did an altitude reading on Louis Botha compared to altitude reading compared with Oxford Road. And then I found over a distance of 1.5 kilometers, the actual gradient on Oxford Road is less than on Louis Botha. Oxford Road is 1 in 27 meters and Louis Botha is 1 in 23. Now what that means, for every meter that you want to move vertically, you've got to move either 23 meters horizontally or 27 meters horizontally. But then I took another reading at this steepest points, and I found that Oxford Road at its steepest point has got a gradient of 1 in 13 compared to Louis Botha coming down Death Bend at 1 in 20. On top of that, Oxford Road has a very obvious ridge, virtually a vertical ridge that they blasted through, where Louis Botha has a constant easing gradient. That is why the early road to Pretoria came all the way out east. So when you had to go to Saxonville, you had to come out all the way down Louis Botha, turn left into Houghton Drive and go all the way back again until they started to blast a road that they could use coming down Oxford or Jan Smuts and any of those places. You want to talk about the history of Sylvia's Pass?
Okay, folks, we're now entering into Sylvia's Pass. The short stretch of road beginning used to be named Callenbach Drive. So understanding that the landowners were Callenbach and Kennedy, and they granted land to the council to make a proper road through the pass at the extreme eastern end of Mountain View. Those of you who were on the tour I was on this morning, we discussed Callenbach a lot. He was a good friend of Mahatma Gandhi. But after Gandhi went back to India, Callenbach went back to his career as an architect, and he was very accomplished as such. You fine? There's a great white house up in front of us. Now there's two, the one on the extreme right we'll be discussing later, but the one straight in front of us apparently was already there in 1922, and at the time of the big strike, remember March 1922, the month the Rand went mad, apparently there were soldiers and police in the rocks and in between the pillars of that building, and they turned the strikers back. There were no casualties. Sylvia's Pass believed to be officially the shortest pass in South Africa. it is about 300 meters long, but you've noticed that it is very steep in places. I think we've got here, it's about a 1 in 6 gradient, so it really is very steep indeed. Supposedly you rise about 280 meters, which is even surprising. Now, various attempts were made to widen this road, but you can imagine that physically it was a very difficult thing to do. You've added the crash barriers on the outer side, and it ended up with very small footpaths. It can be difficult for pedestrians here. Yes, but the average gradient is 1 in 9, but the maximum 1 in 6. The elevation of the top is 1,757 meters.
Okay, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the geology of Sylvia's Pass. On the south side, as we came up, you have actually basalt resting on the Witwatersrand supergroup granite floor. In total, it actually represents a layer of fossil soil. So the lowest layer of the Witwatersrand supergroup is a pure quartzite with a thin basalt conglomerate layer. This quartzite shows sedimentary structures like layering and cross-layering, and the cross-stratification, sorry about all the big words, in the quartzite indicates a tidal action, as the sand was deposited by water flowing in both northern and southern directions. This suggests this position in a beach environment. The quartzite forming the ridge is also called the Orange Grove quartzite. This is the Sylvia's Pass is between Linksfield Ridge on your left and Mountain View Ridge on your right.
Folks, the question that no one has asked, and please don't ask, is who was Sylvia? It's a bit like saying for the love of Mike, who was Mike? Now, really, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but there's at least 3 different contenders. Apparently 2 Sylvias and 1 Sylvie. No one really knows for sure, and we don't really need to go through all of them. So the history of the name Sylvia's Pass is a mystery as of now.
And then slow down. As we make our way to a very quick stop up here, just keep eye on your left. If you turn a post box, there's a post box, red post box on your left, red post box. There's a red post box. I mean, it's such a novelty to see a post box. Sorry, it's like seeing a ticky box. Okay.
We'll stop this, they can actually look in and arrive.
Yeah, but there's not many can see up the
You see it now.
Just stop. Yeah, just stop.
So you can just stop right in the shade. Thank you.
We're approaching one of our quite popular tourist spots, which is known as Tracy's Folly. Can we go slightly further forward? Can we see it?
No, not much. Yeah, we can go slightly further forward.
Try to look to your right where it says cargo carriers. Try to look at that mansion through the gate. That is the other big building that we saw in the distance. Okay. There's very little to see now. It was erected in 1907, late Edwardian times, by mining magnate P.W. Tracy. There's extensive grounds, including the whole of the copy face down below, and it was said to have cost not less than £30,000. It was then bought by a private schoolmaster and became a school for a long time, but closed down apparently as uneconomical. One of our guides, Alex Parker, had a remarkable comment about it. She says it's an architectural masterpiece, but you can only enjoy it if you're in a helicopter. It's right on the edge and really difficult to get a good view. For a long time it was owned by AECI, and it was often referred to as the AECI House. They used it as a training facility for the staff. It's still very impressive, fine panelled hall, and impressive staircase with the fittings. It still has most of its architectural and finishing charms from its heydays. It's also known as Beauvais, which we've previously been told means beautiful view. I'm going to show you it doesn't, and one French lady when we were there was not pleased at all. That would be Bellevue. It's as though it's good outlook or something like that. But anyway, it is the massive building that's been known as the ACI House for many years, and it is still there, available to visit some of our tours.
Okay, I'll take over. Okay, we are going to slightly pick up pace. We seem to be running slightly out of time. While we are going, I'm going to be talking about just more on the topography of Johannesburg, which is located on the Highveld of the Witwatersrand, and it's a series of low rocky ridges that acts as a watershed. Although I'm going to talk a little bit about a quirk in the watershed, where all the rivers that start on the north flows north, and the rivers on the south flow south, and there's one river that doesn't follow that rule. The southern edge, this is the southern edge. The northern edge is the Magaliesberg. The southern edge is at an altitude of roughly 1,900 meters at its highest point, or close to 2,000 meters at Northcliffe Kopje. The quartzite dates from about 3 to 2.8 billion years old, and it's called part of the Witwatersrand supergroup. As I said, it's made of the ridges of, well, not the ridges, the formations of the Brixton, the Orange Grove, the Parktown formation. So it's made up of different formations that is actually tilted in a 30 degrees in the southerly direction, which means that if you look at an aerial view, what we would call the eye of the dome, there was something happening in the eye that tilted the ground to the south and exposed the rocky ridges. So in the northern side, you've got sharp edges going down, literally vertically, and on the south side, you've got easy slopes going down in the vertical direction. Yeah, just carry on. Okay. So to the east, the north, and the west of the Johannesburg Dome, the outdipping sediments of the Transvaal supergroup creates an undulating hills accentuated by quartzite and chert ridges. The northern boundary marked by the Magaliesberg escarpment composed of coarse granite through which the Crocodile River has carved a narrow gorge and is now dammed at the Hartbeespoort Dam. Do you want to talk quickly about the school? Yeah.
We're coming past the Sacred Heart College. I think this is a Marist College, if I remember rightly. A Catholic school, and it's the only thing we really want to say significant about this is that at the time the ANC came into power, they were repeatedly sending their children not to government schools, but to Catholic schools such as this one. At the time, Catholic schools generally offer a degree of subsidy. The Anglican ones are a bit more upmarket. But anyway, at that time there were lots of ANC youngsters in this school who later moved on to others.
We turn left. Yeah, no, stop street. At the stop street, turn left.
Stop street to turn left.
Yeah.
This road can get a bit dodgy.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to turn up left into Bezuidenhout Street. Bezuidenhout Street is named after Bezuidenhout, who owned the farm Doornfontein. Doornfontein with Braamfontein, Klipfontein, and a couple of other fonteins were big farms that surrounded the area where JHB City developed in the middle of at Randkies Laagte, which is called uitvalsgrond. So it's ground that didn't belong to anybody. It was vacant ground. So Paul Kruger said, if you want the city, you can have that little piece of ground and build yourself a city there. Of course, now the city has extended way, way, way beyond that. But I want to talk about another matter that's very close to us all, called the water supply of Johannesburg, and sometimes the lack thereof. So Johannesburg has been faced with water supply challenges from the beginning, due to the fact that it's not built on a natural source of water, like a natural river. We've got streams and we've got springs, but we don't have a proper river. So in the early days, the water was sourced from springs and then delivered by cart. Not much different from today, but it was delivered by cart to people for usage. Yes, we are now going through the southern sections of Yeovil. As you will see to your left, to your right, the changes that Yeovil had gone through. So it just keeps going straight. Okay. Okay, since 1984, water was extracted from the farms Klipprivier and Zuurbekom, located about 27 kilometers southwest of Johannesburg. And the Johannesburg Water Estate acquired the source. By 1898, temporary pumps were used, and by 1899, the Zuurbekom pumping station was completed, meeting Johannesburg's water needs with clear water. So we had pumping water already from the 1890s or the late 1890s to feed a growing city that was constantly having water problems. Fast forward a couple of hundred years later, or 100 and odd years later, and we still have problems with pumping water to Johannesburg. Yeah, as fast as you like, please. Can you contact Michelle, please, of Mitch, and tell her that we're running late? Yeah.
Ja.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. Wait, you go. Come. Come. No, we can't go.
Oh, yes, you have to.
Up front here, we're going to cross Rocky Street, and it is literally called Rocky Street, as you will notice as we go across Rocky Street. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. I came up here Saturday last week and it wasn't. There must be something. No, it wasn't quite like this. I specifically did it this time of the day to see what the traffic was like.
I see there was a few methods.
Yeah. Keep going, keep going, just keep going, keep going. Keep going.
I think it's this. Yeah.
No, keep going.
It's going to turn right when he wants
Yeah.
to the right.
No, I'm going to talk about it while I'm at it. Just tell me where I'm going to talk about it. Keep going.
Just trying to see which road is that.
This is Becca. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Just keep going. Let's try. Keep going. Who's here on the corner?
Yeah, the next one is this.
Ladies and gentlemen, up front here on the left is Brown House. This house belonged to Herman Charles Bosman's family. That is where he lived when he shot his stepbrother, and he was jailed and actually put on death row. He was then commuted, but he had spent some time in jail. He was the author of he was the author from the Groot Marikov. If you remember from from Skalk Lawrence. Yes. 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 Just back on the water source for Johannesburg. So today, it was still still a problem with sourcing water from far away. So today, we have water that's being sourced still from the Vaal River, because that is the only proper source of water 80 kilometers away. It's pumped up to Johannesburg, and Johannesburg's water works on a gravitational system. So while the pumps are running, the water is flowing. The pump stops running, the water stops flowing, because on the higher reaching areas, the water will just literally run away in gravitation.
So we just go forward so we can see
Yeah,
the tower. Just go forward behind this Corolla Quest.
No, go before the tower.
Actually, go before this guy.
Pass it back.
Go before him.
Can you hear me, folks?
Stop here.
Just stop on the left.
Just stop. Just stop on there.
Okay, just ahead of us.
On
is
your right.
An absolutely iconic structure of Johannesburg, the Yeovil Water Tower. I've passed around.
We can't stop too long.
We can't. We've got to be very brief. The blueprint of the water tower was rediscovered in 2018, and our former chairman, Kathy Munro, did a wonderful article which is in the Heritage portfolio to give you a few details of it. The Yeovil Water Tower was built in
You can
1913.
sit up to your left, up to your right. Sorry. No, keep going.
Yeah, it was built by Kloener of Dortmund in Germany. Blueprint, as we said, rediscovered in 2018 at the bottom of a drawer. The elevation is 1,850 meters above sea level. Now, the data given is a bit contradictory, but supposedly it is 5.06 meters diameter and capacity for 50,000 gallons or 227 cubic meters. The investment at the time was £1,751, which would have been 190,000 in 2017, or 3.2 million rand today. But we're not clear what's included. Did it include pumps? But anyway, it's well over a century later. That wonderful water tower still stands. Many of us say it looks like a German World War I helmet.
Sorry, okay, we're going down Stewart's Drive now, and this pass is carries predominantly Brixton quartz formation. It's a continuous rock formation with originally sand deposit on the ancient shore again of about 2.5 million years ago. It's buried under other rock formations and subjected to pressure and heat became hard and weather resistant rock, and the layer is tilted currently at 30 degrees south. On your left you will see the wall, the wall of the Stewart's Drive, the pedestrian wall. That wall was not built by prisoners of war. In 1936, there were no prisoners of war. That wall was built by the Johannesburg Council, It had weathered, it had completely broken, and the Johannesburg Heritage Foundation had actually helped with the repairs of the wall. This pass is the steepest of the 3 passes. You drop from 1,800 to 1,730 meters. At its steepest point, it has a gradient of 1 in 6. So vertically, you'll rise 1 meter over 6 meters horizontally. It also passes, there's some of the outcrops you'll see has got a green-like feature to it. That is because it contains fuchsite, which is it's a form of a chromium traces of fuchsite that gives it a green coloring.
And there we go. We've got some
You can see on your left. Yeah, no, just like virtually stop, but then go again. Up here, we're going to cross a road called Terrace Road. We're just going to make a very quick stop so I can show you. This is Terrace Road, crossing the road here, left and right. Yeah, stop. Okay, you can go again. On Terrace Road to the right, a few houses down the road, there's number 73 Terrace Road that belonged to this infamous lady called Daisy de Melka. The one whose husband mysteriously died and the son died, but she was the sole heir of their inheritance. And yeah, left, sorry. So she was found guilty of the murder of her son. She was hanged and she's buried in the Church Street Cemetery in Pretoria West. Her son and husband is buried in Brixton. But there's a question mark about her first husband that she had in Zimbabwe or Rhodesia, because strangely enough, he also died within a year of marrying her after she became his sole heir. But they never proved anything, so we can't quote anything, but it does raise the question, what happened to him and why? Yeah,
We're going to stop soon.
yes, but you've got like 2 minutes to talk. On the right? I'm going to pull off on the right. Right here. Right here. Is it no? It's further on? It's further on. Sorry, it's further on. Keep going. You can pick up speed. And then keep to the right. You're going to pull off to the right. Right? Yes, no. Here. You're going to pull off here. Right here. Keep going.
At the corner store.
Not right at the corner, because you're going to need to turn at the corner. But just keep going forward. But more forward. Okay, right.
Okay, gentlemen, this extraordinary symmetrical building next to us on our left is called Yukon. It is occasionally a destination we go to on our tours. It's looked over the Zaitnout Valley for many, many years, and you can imagine the views from the top. They're not licensed, but they do cater, and it was very good the ones that I went there. And this house has the strange honour that it was the home and property of 2 Johannesburg mayors. It was completed in 1911 T.F. Allen. Later owner, also mayor, was A.S. Holland. It's gone through several owners. A major feature was 4 magnificent stained glass windows entitled Commerce, Justice, Industry and Agriculture. Now, I believe it's during the latest purchase that those windows disappeared. The previous owner took them to England, sold them in England, and that they have not come back. Although
Yeah, no, but they're not too fast. Not too fast. Okay, that's it.
I would have.
Yeah,
not quite. This building was proclaimed a national monument in 1981, and so the Monuments Board laid a charge of theft when those windows were taken.
Nothing much to speak.
You're not supposed to remove anything from your building if the owner of a national monument.
Okay, as I said earlier, I'm gonna tell you about a quirk in this whole watershed ridge that we live on, about north and south flowing rivers. We are now driving virtually parallel to the Yixkay River. The Yixkay River, for some odd reason, starts just up the front, close to Ellis Park. So it starts up front, just close to Ellis Park, and instead of flowing south, because we are south of the ridge, we just came down Stewart's Drive on the south side, it flows east. It flows literally due east, and then at Galuli's farm, or Galuli's interchange, where there's a gap in the ridge, it turns virtually 90 degrees, flows north, northwest, and joins the Crocodile, flowing to the Indian Ocean. Not like other rivers that start on the south side, that flow south and then to the Atlantic Ocean. On my research I've done, I just found that it has no choice, it's got to follow the valley. It wasn't a good enough answer for me. So I took out Google Earth again. Because on Google Earth you can do altitude readings. And I found that this valley particularly has a dip in altitude in an easterly direction. Then at Galuli's, the earth literally, the altitude drops in a northerly direction. That therefore, with the river starting on the south side, actually flows east and north, and not according to the other rules that it's supposed to flow south and west.
So you're going to turn right here.
Up front we've got Ellis Park. We won't name, if there's anybody from New Zealand. Okay. They seem to not have a good time at Ellis Park. Which is our big rugby stadium. But it's also a sporting complex. We've got the Ellis Park tennis stadium and also the rugby stadium, and there used to be an Ellis Park swimming pool as well. Okay. After this? Up front, we will be passing it. That just on your left is Ponty. We've done tours at Ponty as well, and I know very often people go like, Ponty, I don't want to go to Ponty. I drove to Ponty with my own car. You can Uber into Ponty as well, and we do a lovely tour in Ponty, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. They've got their own guides, but they do a lovely tour all the way to the top. I think from there we can just, yeah, we can go. We will, yeah. We're just going to go. Yeah. Because I think I will do the right as we go. We can just keep going. Yeah. Keep going. One thing I just want to draw your attention to as we go, this is Charlton Terrace. They had plans of actually demarcating a suburb called Charlton, named after one of the landlords, or was very involved in the mining of Johannesburg. They never actually got to the fact of demarcating a suburb called Charlton, but they just at least kept the name for the terrace. But we are right under the Old Harrow Road, which is now called Joe Slovo. It was renamed Joe Slovo in 2003 after he was a member of the SACP and the ANC stalwart. He died of cancer in 1995, and in 2003 they renamed Harrow Road after Joe Slovo. But Joe Slovo / Harrow Road also have some lovely outcrops, geological formations that you can view just as we pass the bridge on the left and the right. There's a convoluted formation and a condylated formation. So it's a granule formation and what they call a granule formation and a fold formation. So on that note, I just want to say to you that all these big words that's got me totally tongue-tied. The foundation sells a book. It was published in 1986. It's called Geological and Mining Sites of Johannesburg and the Witwatersrand. It comes with a map. And it will tell you exactly where the geological outcrops are and give a full explanation of the outcrops. It was my go-to book that I used during the planning of this tour. It is very, very useful. The only thing I would advise against, there's a beautiful outcrop in Tudhope Street in Berea. It is not advisable to go and stop to view that specific outcrop because of safety and security. Most of the other ones is pretty okay. So if you're into learning more about the geological formations or just want to design your own little geological tour around the city, that is a very good book to have. I would advise, luckily we only sell the English version. Initially I bought the Afrikaans version, and I still do not to this day know why I bought the Afrikaans version, because even though I'm very much English Afrikaans, I've got an English technical mind. I think everything technically in English. So I literally had to translate my Afrikaans book, which didn't always work too well. So today I went and bought myself the English book. Okay, we can. Yeah, but I'll just make a quick mention as we go past it, so we can move along. Yeah. I'm still stressing. I'm running out of time.
Yeah.
You must talk to her in the time. She's my colleague. She'll take
Antoinette,
yes.
do you know how to get like a good modern map in Johannesburg?
Well, it depends what type of map. A road map or a...
It would be cool if it was like a topographical map with roads.
Yeah, no. I just got a question, and I'm opening this to the floor. What's your name? Kat asked if there's a good map, like a topographical map of Johannesburg that indicates roads. On that, I must just say that book, the geological book on Johannesburg, was printed in 1986. It is time for an update, so anybody want to put up their hands and make an update, please? As we take the corner here, just keep your eye to the right. That is the back of St. John's College. It's a Sir Herbert Baker school. It's a boys' school. Okay.
St. John's College, we normally associate with that absolutely towering stone column which you can see so well from St. Patrick's Road and other places like from the wilds right across the valley. This copy stone was largely quarried on the spot. The architect was Sir Herbert Baker. It was a leading Anglican school for boys. The best features are the chapel and of course the belfry tower, both which were built after the Great War. The tower is about 70 feet high. The school is bordered by Golf Place, Tea Lane, which recall the origin of the Royal Johannesburg Golf Club.
just carry on straight.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I know this last section went like a little whiz drive, but we're on our way. We're quite not too far off from the college again. I know we're all completely confused in which direction we went, but we're getting close to the college. So I just want to highlight a couple of things. Tomorrow we've still got a couple of tours going. There's the Saxonwald Grace and Grandeur. We spoke a lot about Saxonwald or Sachsenwald. That was the German name Sachsenwald, which we just anglicized to Saxonwald. The Murder and Madness bus tour is unfortunately sold out. And so sorry on that one. Then there is a walking tour in the college itself. It's a beautiful building with beautiful architecture. So if you didn't go on this morning's tour, there is a tour tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock as well. So the Saxonwald tour is at 9:30. So the Murder Mystery Madness tour is sold out. There's at 13:30 a tour of Villa Arcadia, but unfortunately that tour is closed as well, because they only allowed limited numbers. At 1400 there's a bus walking tour of Noordgesig suburb to the south. And at 1400 the mansions of Oxford Road. Also places we spoke about during this tour at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So if you haven't booked anything for tomorrow and wondering what you're going to do tomorrow, there's some lovely tours that you can come and join on. And of course the book sale, if there's any books left. I've walked up. Yes, there's lots of books, and I didn't buy that many books this year. Only about 5. Okay. So you still have plenty of books to browse through as well. And on that, I also want to say, if you are not a member of the Johannesburg Heritage Foundation, our tours are open to the public. You don't have to be a member of the Heritage Foundation to come on any of our tours, but if you do become a member, we do have exclusive tours for members, and you also get great discounts, and you also know about the tours well in advance before anybody else.
Sorry, amongst the books, don't forget to find the Josie Dale Lace book, written by Neil Fillion at Northwoods. It's a lovely book, and I think you'll enjoy it very much. And there is a very beautiful book called Felt, which deals with Patrick Watson's work as a landscape architect.
Okay, just if anybody don't know who just spoke, that was our honorary chair lady called Flo Bird. She started the Westcliff Heritage Trust to protect and preserve the houses in Parktown that was being smashed down at an alarming rate. And we eventually became known as the Johannesburg Heritage Foundation, and we are still under the stewardship of Flo, we're all happy about. And if you ever go on a tour with her, be warned, she is a walking, talking encyclopedia. She doesn't even have notes in her hands. I just love listening to her. So as we get to the end of our tour, I just want to thank you for participating and choosing to come on our tour. It was really great to have you on our tour. And then to Ed, my co-guide, thank you.
That's right, you're welcome.
It was quite a job. Importantly for Michelle, that got us left and right and all around the route that we had to go on. And then most importantly, Mr. Woodroy, our driver, who so nimbly got this 450 horsepower bus through some tricky places. Thank you, Mr. Woodroy. Much appreciated. Oh, just a last note, please remember to take all your belongings with you. That includes your husband, your wife, your spouse, your fiancé, your friends. Anybody left behind will be auctioned off as a fundraising. And hopefully they'll value something.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Antoinette.